Hey there, good Thursday evening to you, East Coast Weather Association, and also Carolina Weather Pro meteorologist Mike Griffith here from Charlotte, North Carolina. It is about 7:31 p.m. here on Thursday, the 24th of August, 2017. And of course, the talk of the town is Hurricane Harvey in the Gulf here. That's this big area of colors in the western Gulf of Mexico taking aim at the Texas coast. Where exactly he's going to make landfall, a lot of us are not sure because this storm is not behaving in a way that we would expect it to. It doesn't have a big area of high pressure or a low pressure area to work with that's going to steer it in the general direction where we can actually say, hey, this thing is going to hit Houston, or it's going to hit Corpus Christi, or it's going to hit Galveston, or any of the other little towns along the Texas coast. We just can't say exactly where it's going to happen, but we can see a little distinct eye starting to form right here in the middle of Harvey. And this indicates that the storm has strengthened, and it actually is strengthening rapidly. In fact, the Air Force reconnaissance aircraft was finding some pretty good winds here at flight level, which is about 10,000 feet above sea level. Of course, it's not above ground level because this is all water right here, and that's what they refer to in aviation as either above ground level or above sea level. But anyway, 10,000 feet up, they found some pretty strong winds and also pressure below 980 millibars, which is indicating that this hurricane is strengthening. It's currently a Category 3 storm right now, and again, it's not behaving really in a way we would expect it to. We're looking at the middle of the storm here, and if we look at this eye and the center of all this thunderstorm activity, this deep red is really cold cloud tops, which is deep convection around the center of the storm. If we look at it, it looks like it maybe have taken a little bit, slightly of a northward jog in the last two frames right there, but generally it's heading to the northwest. So possibly Houston might really have to be on high alert from this system, because not only is it going to bring crazy flooding, like feet of rain, not inches of rain. They're going to be measuring the storm precipitation from this in feet of rain. Catastrophic situation here for Houston, possible. Likely, I think, especially if this storm continues to take more of a northward jog, it's going to start take aim at Houston, which is right up in here, and not so much for Corpus Christi. But they're going to have to watch out here because, again, this storm is not going to behave in a way that we think it's going to. It could just kind of do whatever it wants. Some models actually have it hitting the coast of Texas and then coming back out after it stalls for a little bit over Houston, and then kind of makes an eastward turn and hit the coast of New Orleans too, make a secondary landfall there. So that's also something that we're looking at as far as a strong possibility. Now, there is just a little tiny bit of shear here in the southern Gulf of Mexico, which is a little bit of dry air on the south side of the storm, which is keeping him from blowing up into a Category 4 or 5. So he's going to strengthen, but the dry air being wrapped into the storm here is going to kind of keep it a little bit from being a major storm such as Katrina was. In fact, that name is probably forbidden because I don't want to scare people. Okay, so here's the latest forecast track from the National Hurricane Center down there in Miami, Florida. So we're looking at the current position. The last advisory was 4 p.m. Thursday, which is today. They have it as a hurricane. If you look down here in the legend, 74 to 110 miles per hour winds. Notice the M, which stands for major hurricane, greater than 110 miles per hour winds. So as it gets closer to the coast, we have an M here, 1 p.m. Friday, over to the wee hours of Saturday morning, or early Saturday morning. A major hurricane is going to strike right up in here. I think it's probably going to strike more up here between these two S's, which means tropical storm. So once it hits land, it weakens significantly, and it becomes a tropical storm after it makes landfall, because it doesn't have the ocean water to work with anymore as fuel. That's how these things work. Warm ocean water is like gasoline to a car engine. It's fuel. Once it doesn't have that source available anymore, it's going to kind of stall out and just rain itself out here. But it could hug the coast and move more towards Louisiana as we go into Sunday and Monday of next week. Overall, since the storm is going to stall right here in this big circle, this white solid circle right here, it's just going to be a very bad situation for whoever's under this solid white here in Texas, because they're just going to get catastrophic flooding. You're going to see in the news probably pictures of cars floating on top of the water, overpasses with underpasses flooded out. You're going to see boat rescues, helicopter rescues. helicopters like the National Guard pulling people from their rooftops, kind of like Katrina. Although this city, any of these cities are not below sea level like New Orleans, so you're not going to see them surrounded by levees breaking like that was the problem in New Orleans. Also, Lake Pontchartrain was a huge body of water right here, and there's no bodies of water that big inland Texas, but still very, very serious situation there for eastern Texas, and they need to be watching out for flooding over the next 72 hours, maybe even more than that. Looking at the shear right here, the shear tendency map, all the red is extreme amounts of shear, which is not favorable for hurricane development. Also in the yellow and green. And Harvey right here is starting to enter a little bit of a shear zone. But that's all it's gonna do. It's just gonna keep him from blowing up into a category 4 or 5. We showed you that dry air being wrapped around on the southern end of the storm. More than likely, it's due to this upper level shear here that's going to keep him from blowing up into anything monstrous. Still, a very bad rain threat, though. Looking at the current model tracks here for Harvey. This is courtesy of tropicaltidbits.com. If you want to take a look there, you can go in there yourself and look at all the goodies they have to offer. Very good website. Within the last 5 years, the website became huge, and it's a good source of place for weather weenies to go. But you don't want to just post these images without any type of knowledge, because you can scare people, and you don't want to do that. So anyway, most of the models agree on a cluster track into Texas here, but then right after this point right here, look at all the forecast paths of the computers do. They just say, hey, we don't know what's going on. We don't know really where Harvey's going to go. It could go up into Houston. It could go into Galveston, or maybe even Corpus Christi. The computers are kind of like, going like this, like, hey, we don't know. All we do is crunch numbers and we put out stuff. So if you're not feeding us good information, we're not going to give you good information on the output, which is this whole mess that you see right here. Some of these tracks, though, do have it take a right turn and then go up into this part of Texas. Some have it making a landfall here and then making a secondary landfall along Louisiana. So very erratic path is possible for this thing upcoming in the next 5 days or so, 4 days or so. 4 days, I would say. And it's going to be a lot of uncertainty as to where he's going to make exact landfall. But I'm thinking, since we saw that little bit of a northward jog in the middle of the eye, that it's going to probably tend more towards Houston. So if you're in Houston, I would say look out. And you always have to look at the current observations here as far as satellite and radar and all that stuff goes, because everybody's so focused on the models these days that nobody pays attention to what's going on in real life. And this is what's going to happen, not what the computers say. So if you look at the eye right here, he formed, and then you have some convection on the northwest side of that thing, some more convection up here on the northeast quadrant of the storm. This is the most dangerous part of the storm once it hits land. This is where there's going to be the highest risk for tornadoes and strongest winds of the storm once it makes landfall. But since this convection is starting to blow up a little bit here on the northeast side of the storm, what I'm thinking is it's going to kind of try to pull this system a little bit more up into this direction right here. Like I said, Houston really needs to be on the lookout for this, and I think that's where this storm more than likely could be going. Taking a look here at the Euro model, I'll get myself out of the way there so you can see the model right here. Right here is the coastline of the United States. There's Florida, the Gulf, there's Texas right there. And we're looking at Harvey right there. This is actually energy at about 5,000 feet in the atmosphere, plus some other factors here that's all overlaid on top of the map. And there he is right there, very strong hurricane, major hurricane, moves into Texas. The Euro has him going south of Houston, between Houston and Galveston, or maybe right into Galveston. And it looks like this is going to be what the European model thinks. Again, none of these computers are going to be exactly as good as what we can see with the naked eye when we look at our own products. And then the European model just has Harvey sitting there and kind of moving up along the Texas and Louisiana coast, and then moves up over Louisiana, and even New Orleans would be feeling it by, let's check our times here, by Wednesday on the 30th. So that's kind of incredible. And if you can notice, there's a little something here trying to get organized off the Carolina coast. It looks like the European takes that as a weak tropical wave away from the Outer Banks of North Carolina and out over the Atlantic. There goes the remnants of Harvey up into the Ohio River Valley, and he's pretty much a rainmaker and a flood maker right there. Even just kind of come back offshore again. Boy, he's made quite a journey all the way from the Lesser Antilles, actually all the way across the Atlantic into the Lesser Antilles, and then into just North and South America, across the Yucatan. Everybody thought he was done, and then he came back to life in the Gulf of Mexico and the Bay of Campeche, and then it's going to be causing a lot of headaches this weekend here. So if you notice what I see out here, here's a wave that comes off the coast of Africa in the middle of next week, and it looks like this could be something to watch, although the European has it kind of fizzle out a little bit. It doesn't really have it too strong, I should say. And it looks like it could take a little bit of a more northward path where it would actually probably recurve out to sea and not be so much of a problem. But we're going to have to keep an eye on this. You remember, around the 30th or 31st, something comes off of Africa, and then the 1st of September or 2nd or so, we're going to have to watch this to see what it does. It's too early to tell. Okay, so with that said, here's the system right here just off the Carolina coast by maybe the 29th, which is Tuesday of next week. If even by then, a 40% chance of formation in 5 days, which is not major. It has gone up. It was yellow, which means less than 40%, but now it's looking like it's going to be a little bit more of a chance of development. If it does, it's going to probably turn out to sea and hug the coast. Maybe the Outer Banks get a little bit of a rain from this, but other than that, not a big deal as it goes out to sea. So that's all we have right now for the tropics. I am meteorologist Mike Griffith for East Coast Weather Association, also for Carolina Weather Pro. Look us up on Facebook and also online at ecwxa.com. Everybody have a great weekend and stay safe.